Welcome back. Now, before we get into the fun part of starting a podcast, the gear, the actual recording, and launching the thing, there are two very important aspects of podcasting that we need to talk about: choosing your topic and picking your format. And in this video, we're going to talk about choosing your format. This is going to drive your planning, your schedule, your pre and post production. So let's dig in. The first thing that you need to remember and you need to make sure of is that you need to pick a topic that you're passionate about. I can't stress this enough. Podcasting is a grind. So the topic you pick needs to be about something you love. Now, this could be a hobby or a profession, something you're even interested in researching. I have had several shows over a bunch of years, but two I want to call out are my interview show, How I Built It, and my scripted show, Creator Toolkit. And I'm not doing that one anymore, but both of those are different in topic and also different in format. I've even toyed with the idea of doing a deeply researched show like Slow Burn or Crime Town, but those topics or those show formats are not going to work unless I have a topic that it works with. It needs to be something I'm willing to put time and money into, and it needs to be the same for you. Because if you just pick a topic because you think it's going to be popular and you're not interested in it, that on top of the normal grind of podcasting is just a surefire recipe for making sure your show will get abandoned. So, talking about topics, we also need to talk about research. That's going to be a super important aspect of your show. And I do research differently depending on my show, on how I built it. I choose guests based on topics or episode topics I want to do, but I don't dive deep into my guest's background. I pick a few areas that I know I want to ask them about, but all in all, the research I do allows me to ask informed questions while also being surprised by their answers. Some podcast hosts will dig deep into their guest's background and know everything about them and lead the conversation that way. I prefer something more organic. On the other hand, Creator Toolkit is completely scripted because I'm talking about tools and not just the tools I use, but the options out there. So I want to make sure that I'm finding the right options and I'm speaking intelligently about those options. I think that is incredibly important to do when you're presenting the information like that. So if we're talking about writing apps, I like to use drafts, but I'm not just going to talk about drafts. I'm going to talk about Ulysses and Evernote and Scrivener and a few others to make sure my listeners get the full range of options. So, you'll need to do a little bit of research for when you're ready to pick your topic. And there are a few things that I recommend you do. First, you'll want to make a list of all of the possible topics you'd want to do a podcast on. My list might look like this: making websites, cigars, audio equipment, Lego, Disney World, stationery, and parenting. These are all things that I'm interested in, but your list will look different. Once you have that list, you're going to need to narrow it down to one, unless you want to start seven different podcasts. So, after you have your list, ask yourself these questions to narrow down the field. Is my voice a good one to lend to this area? Uh, for me, I am interested in parenting, but I'm not an expert. I have one 3-year old and I'm doing the best I can. But there are lots of parenting podcasts, so there are better voices than mine out there for that show. The same thing goes for stationery and Lego. I'm not an expert on either of these, but I like them a lot. But the amount of research and budget I would need is more than I'm willing to invest. And that's the second question. Is this something that you're willing to invest in? If it's not, then you should cross it off of the list. And finally, for me, on my list, this would leave websites, cigars, audio equipment, and Disney World. I know enough about these to have a show, and come up with topics. But again, am I willing to invest the time and the money, or am I willing to convert these hobbies into a job or a jobby, as I've heard it said? Do I really want to make work out of Disney World or out of cigars? Or is it something that I would rather just leave to a hobby? Once you have your list narrowed down that way, you're going to want to ask yourself what you want to be known for. So, to answer that question, you need to ultimately determine what your goal of the podcast is and asking yourself, why am I starting a podcast? Why do I want to put this information out in the world? That will help. I'm pretty well known in WordPress and web development circles, and so that's what I'm most known for professionally. That's perhaps the thing I should focus my podcast on, and that's what I've done in both the instance of how I built it and Creator Toolkit. I can't say the same thing about Disney World or cigars. So you're going to want to consider that too. And if you're still having trouble, then ask yourself these four questions. Why am I starting a show? What do I like talking about? What am I willing to invest time and money into? And what do I want to be known for? Those are the things that will help you determine what the best topic for you is. And finally, your action item for this lesson is to use the space in the workbook to brainstorm these four questions. With these questions, you should come up with a rock solid topic that you are willing to invest time and money into for your podcast. I'm really excited to see what you come up with. Write down your topic, and if you'd like, I would love if you shared it here in the comments or in the student Facebook group. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.